Factors affecting seed to soil contact: hitch height, planting conditions, whether it's too dry, too wet, closing wheel pressure, closing wheel alignment, and gauge wheel adjustments and attachments. Talked a lot about hitch adjustment, and the hitch height should be parallel with the tongue and the ground when planting in the planting position. Parallel arms should be about 22 inches from the ground to the hitch. This is a 3000 series tool or row unit, and you can see some of the things. Blades must have a 1/16 minimum clearance between the shank and the blade. The shim gauge wheel should lightly contact the opener, and that should be adjusted in the field position. Shim blade should have 1 inch to 1.5 inches contact, and the machine bushings, a minimum of 2 between the arm and shank, and a minimum of 1 arm and bolt head. No-till coulters. When I first started talking, I said, guys use different things, so there's different options. What works here doesn't work in Ohio, or vice versa. But the depth setting, the depth set at or slightly above disc opener blades. So your disc opener should be just a little bit below your no-till coulter. And there's 3 different kinds you can get: the 1 inch bubble, 3/4, and 1 inch flooded. Make sure you replace these when they're under 14.5 inches. Residue wheels, this is another thing that's different wherever you go. We feel very confident with our residue wheels. They're floating wheels. A lot of guys will put gauge wheels on them, but we feel that it's not necessary because they're floating wheels. They float with the depth and the setting out in the field. The purpose of this is to remove residue, reduce hair pinning, and a smoother row unit operation. Disc opener blades. Does anybody know how big a disc blade is when it's new? 15 inches. Time to replace when it's 14.5 in diameter. Disc blade opener contact. And this is very scientific, so it took a long time for us to figure out how to do this, but this is how we gauge the right distance. If you have 2 salesman's business cards that wear you out and you want to get rid of them, you put one up top, up in here, and you push it down so you have very good pressure. And then you take one on the bottom, and you push it up. And there should be 1 inch to 1.5 inch spacing. Pretty simple. Inner scraper. This is critical for your seed. This protects the seed tube. A lot of times as they're wore down, you'll see the bottom of your seed tube getting scraped and wore out. Or I've seen some of the seed tubes that half the seed tube bottom is ripped off. It's worn through. Prevents soil buildup between the openers and the blade, and make sure you replace it when it's 5/8 or less. Gauge wheels. Shim arm for light contact at the tire of the blade, and also arm and bushing. Depth adjustment. This is also another field based on where you're at and how it's going into the ground. Check for proper depth in the field conditions. There's multiple settings on our planters, which gives you flexibility. Closing wheel, this is another big one. This is another thing. A lot of guys love our closing wheels that come on it. But in Indiana, the guys will use a 15-inch spiked on one side and a regular closing wheel on the other. The most important thing is make sure it's centered over the trench. These things can be offset to let residue flow through. Apply only enough down pressure to maintain good soil to seed contact though. We don't want to have the pressure too high so it pushes the seed down This is just to cover up the seed, make sure it's contact with the soil. Here's you can see where on the left side, it's over the hole, it's over the trench, and that's not what it's there for.
Where we're starting to get into higher areas of residue now with what you guys are doing with tillage practices, Kinze does offer a stalk deflector that goes in between the rubber bead press wheels or whatever press wheel options you're putting in there. Just mounts right up in there, and it's real nice to put on. You see there where kind of stalks are starting to lodge and gather up in there? That'll prevent that.
Like that? Did you see my slideshow before?
No, I didn't, Dave.
All right. Here's what he's talking about right here. This helps protect, the top number is a part number, but it helps prevent stock lodging and closing wheel. That's perfect. Yep. We do offer those. A lot of guys use it. It stops from jamming, like we saw on this first slide, or the slide before. See how the stock slide up in there? What that does is it just plows. Very good. Parallel arms. Let's make sure the bolts are firm and tight. Bushings are not wore out, or loose. The down pressure springs are still holding their pressure, and the drive chains. Some of the guys you can see, hey, is my planter worn out? You go up to their planter and just grab and rack it from side to side. That's not good. What will happen is your planter will be all out of whack. Your rows will be offset. Not good. We do offer in the sands and the clays a heavy-duty spring on your right-hand side for more down pressure. Keep the speed in perspective. I get a lot of questions when we're out at shows and dealerships. What's the right speed? 6 miles per hour equals how many feet per second? It's 8.8 feet per second. At that planting speed, a seed rate of 30,000 seeds per acre equals a median rate of 15.2 seeds per second. Meter inspection, which is critical when we're getting ready to plant. And when we're done, and up here you can see I brought a few of the meters, different meters, and some of the different cells you can put in them. And I'm kind of going back, but in the things that we put it together in the packet, they're talking about soybeans are going to be bigger than normal, so going down to 48 cell instead of 60. So it's critical, or it's very important that you get those right away. Finger pickup. I would say 85% of the people who have planters in this room, 85 to 90% have finger pickup. Also brush meter for your soybeans. Mechanical meter life expectancy. As you can see on the left-hand side, it's your brush meter. The seed disc is 100 to 200 acres per row. The upper brush, which is getting the majority of the wear and tear, is 120 to 400 acres. Your lower brush is 240 to 800. And your stainless steel wear band is about 250 to 800. On your finger pickup, your top brush is at 100 acres per row. Your carrier plate, which you'll see a little scarring or a little different hint or tint, is at 250 to 300. Your fingers and springs are 600 to 900 acres per row. The way you tell that is if you flip your meter back and it doesn't spring back, it's time to get rid of it. Your drive belt sprocket, replace when the pins become cupped. And your seat belt, inspect for damage. These are very low maintenance meters, extremely dependable, and that's why they're the majority of what we sell. The vacuum meter, which I have up here, and I can show you a demo when we're done. I'll turn it on and we can kind of show you, go through, if you're not familiar with it, how it works.